Years of innovative design. From the iconic to the up-and-coming, design is the heart of our business. Copenhagen, Phoenix, Scottsdale, Tempe.
Hospice of the Valley, medical, social, and spiritual care for patients nearing end of life and support for their families. A not-for-profit community hospice, HOV.org.
I'm Chef Mark Charbel. Join me for a brand new episode of Check Please Arizona. This week, our guests have dined all over the valley, at Taqueria El Chino in Phoenix, The Thumb in Scottsdale, and at Elements at Sanctuary Resort in Paradise Valley. Don't miss an all-new episode of Check Please Arizona, tonight at 7 on Arizona PBS.
Explore new ideas and new worlds here on Arizona PBS, a community service of Arizona State University.
Arizona PBS provides great musical performances all year long, and now we have some of the best seats to see your favorite acts live and in concert. Arizona PBS Box Office presents a backstage pass to meet world-class performers, a chance to see exciting performances before they sell out. This month, Arizona PBS Box Office presents A Conversation with Linda Ronstadt, a big-screen multimedia journey through the life of Linda Ronstadt at Scottsdale Center for the Performing Arts, Thursday, April 26th.
Coming up next on Arizona PBS, Life and World. Support for Arizona PBS comes from viewers like you and from
Hospice of the Valley, medical, social, and spiritual care for patients nearing end of life and support for their families. A not-for-profit community hospice, HOV.org.
From the Cronkite Studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
President Trump says arming highly trained teachers is the next step to preventing gun violence in schools. Here are his plans to prevent another tragedy as the national gun control debate wages on.
There is no minimum age requirement for minors to get married in Arizona. How a local senator is working to change that.
I just feel really empty inside of my heart.
It's been 1 year since Guadalupe Garcia de Rayos was deported back to Mexico from Mesa. We have an inside look of how she and her family are coping.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Nicole Costantino.
And I'm Gabriel Gamino. Thank you for joining us. In the midst of a national school security debate, Valley authorities are ramping up efforts to protect students and taking potential threats seriously. Scottsdale police arrested a Coronado High School student today after he posted a message on social media saying, "Don't go to school tomorrow," with a picture of what appeared to be an assault rifle. It turned out to be an airsoft rifle. Peoria police also arrested a Liberty High School student who had a gun in his parked car on school property. The student told police bringing the weapon to school was an accident. President Trump held a meeting with lawmakers today to discuss gun violence and respond to last week's mass shooting in Parkland, Florida. Trump placed blame on video games, movies, and gun-free zones. Trump said he plans to get tougher with background checks, raise the legal gun buying age, and look into arming certain teachers, an idea that members of both parties have denounced.
We're going to do strong background checks. We're going to work on getting the age up to 21 instead of 18. We're getting rid of the bump stocks. You have teachers that are Marines for 20 years and they retire, they become a teacher, and they're Army, Navy, Air Force, they're Coast Guard, they're people that have won shooting contests, and they're for whatever. This is what they do. They know guns, they understand guns.
The notion that my kids are going to school with teachers that are armed with a weapon is not something that, quite frankly, I'm comfortable with.
Trump also spoke about his support for the National Rifle Association. NRA CEO Wayne LaPari continued to blame Democrats at the Conservative Political Action Conference.
It's not a safety issue. It's a political issue. They care more about control and more of it. Their goal is to eliminate the Second Amendment.
The Giffords Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence says at least 8 states allow or don't specifically prohibit concealed weapons in K through 12 schools, but the president of the American Federation of Teachers called the proposal to arm teachers a horrible idea.
The deportation of Mesa mother Guadalupe Garcia de Rios made national headlines last February. At the time, she was the first person deported under President Trump's new executive order to crack down on undocumented immigration. Cronkite News reporter Adriana de Alba is following the story.
It was supposed to be a routine check-in, but it was here that Guadalupe Garcia de Rios spent her final moments in the U.S. with her children after being detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement. We caught up with the family 1 year later to see how they're coping with the separation. It's a moment that became a flashpoint in the immigration debate. These images of Guadalupe Garcia de Rios watching her 2 children from the inside of a locked van, hours before being deported to Mexico. 12 months later, the family describes every waking moment since her deportation as a living nightmare. They say a video chat at the end of each night is the only thing they have to look forward to.
It's been pretty tough on me. Because I was so used to coming to my mom, not just for needing to talk to her, but to just to go just hang out with her, I would always go and lay down next to her in her bed, and now I can't do that, because she's not here.
I can't even describe my feelings. The best way I can describe it is I just feel really empty inside of my heart. My mom was my everything, so it's like half of my heart is missing.
I'm here and I'm gonna keep on fighting.
Her children are not the only ones suffering. More than 1,400 miles away in Acámbaro, Mexico, Guadalupe is now battling depression, living at her elderly parents' home. With the help of the Mexican government, she opened up a tortilla shop, but is struggling financially. Guadalupe was first arrested back in 2008 during an immigration raid and convicted of a felony for using someone's social security number to work as a custodian. Immigration lawyer Ray Ibarra is trying to reopen her felony case to have that conviction thrown out, based on the grounds that ex-Sheriff Joe Arpaio's immigration raids at workplaces were deemed unconstitutional. Back in Mesa, pictures of her are all around, but this family home feels empty. Guadalupe's husband has asked us not to identify him by name.
My wife is missing. That's what's missing, the important part of our family. Coming home and not smelling that food, ready for us when we get home. Her not being here, it changed. Everything changed a lot.
For now, the family says they hang on to their religious faith, finding strength one day at a time.
I hope that my mom comes home, but I also hope that the separation of families stops because, it's simply not fair.
As of right now, the family is waiting to see if the federal government will reopen her felony case. That decision is expected March 5th. In Phoenix, Adriana de Alba, Cronkite News.
Arizona could be raising its age requirements to get married. I spoke with Arizona State Senator Sean Bowie to see why he thinks state law should protect those who might not be able to protect themselves.
I think it's going to help a lot of young women.
Sean Bowie is one of the Arizona state senators behind Senate Bill 1139, a bill that would create a minimum age requirement for minors to get married in the state. Over half the states in the U.S. don't have an age requirement for marriage, most just requiring parental consent or a judge's approval, including Arizona. Just last year, Texas legislature passed a bill mandating a minimum age, and that's what Bowie says inspired this bill back home.
There are a lot of cases of young women, 15, 16 years old, being married to men who were much older.
The bill would set the minimum age to 16 here in Arizona and require those 16 and 17 to be legally emancipated, either through parental consent or proof of self-sufficiency. According to the clerk's office of the Maricopa County Superior Court, in the past 5 years, 570 minors have received marriage licenses in Maricopa County alone. That data shows some 17-year-old women marrying men 24 years older than them, something Jason Velcruz of the Arizona Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence says can create tension and lead to marital issues.
Since sexual and domestic violence is something around power and control, if there is a relationship where one person is exerting more power and control over someone else against their consent, regardless of gender or age, then that creates an imbalance that could be potentially sexual or domestic violence.
Those Bowie say this bill will mainly affect young women.
If you're part of a family that wants you to get married at a young age and you're not really crazy about the idea, you have protections in law.
Bowie says this bill can create a first line of protection for those young women who can't protect themselves.
We reached out to other counties for their marriage age data, but so far only Maricopa and Mojave counties gave us numbers in time for tonight's broadcast. Data from Mojave shows there were more than 130 underage marriages between 2011 and 2017.
The 19th Amendment gave women the right to vote, but that's the only constitutional right women are granted. As Emily Richardson reports, here in Arizona, women are still trying to get an Equal Rights Amendment ratified in order to help fight against the pay gap and sexual harassment.
In 1972, the ERA was proposed as an amendment to the Constitution and sent to the states for ratification. Congress placed a 7-year time limit, and today it still falls 2 states short of ratification eligibility. However, women across the state believe granting equal rights in Arizona could still help put it in the Constitution.
People feel equal, and so they question why we need the Equal Rights Amendment. But equality is not a feeling.
Rebecca McHood, an advocate for the amendment and part of the ERA Task Force AZ, says working towards ratifying the amendment is important to her because she feels as if she is carrying on the legacy of her female ancestors.
Getting women equal protection under the Constitution, which we don't have, I feel like is a duty I owe to my great-great-grandmothers.
Representatives Pamela Powers-Hanley and Michelle Ugenti-Rita introduced an ERA bill this year.
Our protections, our being women's protections, should be protections the opposite sex has.
Women and raise the equality and pass the Equal Rights Amendment in the state of Arizona.
But the bill has not made it through committees. Some feel since it had to have passed back in 1982, there's no point in pursuing it.
Every amendment that has gone through the gauntlet of the states has become an amendment to the Constitution, and you're not going to stop equal rights for women on a technicality.
It was an arbitrary time limit that was put, it was a sexist time limit that was put on passing the ERA.
Supporters of the bill are hopeful that if they do not stop expressing the importance of an ERA, Arizona lawmakers will eventually grant women equal rights.
We've seen the power of women's voices when they come together, when they speak up. 2 states isn't a lot. Arizona could be one of those states.
Hanley says that she is hopeful that it could get a striker and get it a hearing, and she is working to get it discussed on the floor. In the media center, Emily Richardson, Cronkite News.
Representative Ruben Gallego joined members of the Latino community today looking for pollution-preventing solutions. They're concerned about high rates of lung cancer, asthma attacks, and other health issues due to bad air quality. Today, the Unidos US, formerly known as the National Council of La Raza, met in downtown Phoenix to discuss the air pollution in Arizona. Members hope to get the attention of Governor Doug Ducey to protect future generations. Congressman Gallego says more positive actions need to be taken to improve air quality.
We need to be consistently doing positive action towards that, electing officials that are, going to be in support of clean air legislation. At the same time, we need to make sure that the Trump administration doesn't actually roll back some of the advances that were made under President Obama.
According to a report by the National Resources Defense Council and Voces Verde, Latinos live in the 15 worst areas for air pollution. A community close to collapsing is looking at a new business venture to bring life back to their town.
Coming up on Cronkite News, how the cannabis industry could save the border town of Blythe, California.
In almost 100% of the state of Arizona is in a drought, how that will impact wildfires this year.
I'm Judy Woodruff, anchor and managing editor of the PBS NewsHour. The journalists of tomorrow face a fast-changing media landscape, but quality news remains vitally important to our communities, our country, and our world. At ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication, students learn solid, reliable reporting, holding the powerful accountable, and rebuilding the public's trust. The Cronkite School and Arizona PBS, preparing the next generation for a stronger future of journalism.
As journalists at Cronkite News, we report on stories that matter to you by focusing on the local impact. We dig deeper and work tirelessly to keep you informed.
Live in Wickerburg.
Live in Los Angeles. In Cleveland. In Washington. In Louisville.
From Jerusalem. Live in Philadelphia. From around the world to right here in Phoenix.
At Cronkite News, we report the facts and stick to the truth.
A new poll of Arizona voters show there is over 2/3 support for the regulation and taxation of recreational marijuana. The poll was conducted by OH Predictive Insights and the Consumer Choice Center, showing that nearly 63% of Arizona voters are in favor of taxing marijuana like alcohol. There was about a 20% gap between Republicans and Democrats on the issue, with about 48% support from Republicans and almost 69% support from Democrats. The poll came as a new effort to get a proposition to legalize marijuana on the ballot for the 2018 election.
Blythe, the farming city known for its rest stops on the road to California, is close to collapsing. But there's a new plan to bring the city back to new heights. Los Angeles Bureau reporter Brooke DeGambia has the story.
Not too far from the I-10 off-ramp and the fast food restaurants, you'll see closed businesses, for lease signs, and the only movie theater, now for rent.
It's kind of like one of those cities next to a military base when it closes, except this one's closing slowly. And, you know, you can feel it little by little.
The border town of Blythe has been in a period of decline, losing population, businesses, and most importantly, jobs since the 2008 recession.
There's boarded up stores, Kmart, you know, mine's one of them.
The vast majority of people have to go online or go out of town if they want any type of supplies.
Blythe's population has dipped below 13,000 people, and those who stay say it's time for a change that may come in the form of cannabis. Blythe is now preparing to welcome the largest cannabis cultivation project in the world.
I fear what would happen if this didn't come along.
Stephen Gregory, the head of this massive project, believes the cannabis industry can help bring Blythe back to life.
There's never been an investment like this in the city of Blythe.
Named the Palo Verde Center, it'll be around 2.5 million square feet, contain mostly growers, a couple manufacturers, and one laboratory.
We have all of these businesses in one space, with secured perimeter fences, 24/7 security, you know, armed security. We're even having robots that patrol the property.
With a budget of over $300 million, Gregory says Blythe was the right place for the project. It has the lowest tax regimen in California and cheap land, costing $3 per square foot. But that's not all.
Blythe sits right on the Colorado River, providing farmers with more than enough water for this project.
But not everyone agrees that bringing cannabis to the city is a good thing.
They think that, okay, we lost Walmart, but now we're going to have this great product called marijuana, which is a gateway to many other drugs.
They're not sure if this is going to be the savior, but we need something, and they're hoping this is it.
Despite those who oppose it, the plan is expected to bring in over $1 million to Blythe each year. In Blythe, Brooke DeGambia, Cronkite News.
With growers already interested, the Palo Verde Center is expected to break ground in 5 months and be completed by the end of the year or early 2019.
Grand Canyon University officials expect a decision this week on the university's application to become a nonprofit. The Higher Learning Commission previously denied GCU's request in 2016 and has set more guidelines for schools to become nonprofits. A nonprofit status would allow the university to accept donations and research grants. GCU would no longer pay property taxes for the residential campus. Arizona has had an extremely dry winter, meaning risk for wildfires in our state is high.
Coming up on Cronkite News, how state officials are preparing to protect Arizona during this abnormally dry winter season.
And are these cooler temperatures going to be sticking around much longer? I've got your 7-day forecast.
I'm Ted Simons, host and managing editor of Arizona Horizon. Join us each weekday at 5:30 and 10 as we bring you the top newsmakers who impact the state. We cover the stories in depth that shape and affect our local communities, and we take the time to ensure that all voices are equally heard. For more than 30 years, Arizona Horizon has been your voice and your source for what matters most, right here on Arizona PBS.
By the year 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. Before Professor Halden, I had an insane amount of passion, but I almost felt helpless because I didn't know how to use it. Professor Halden gave me a chance to make a difference. Being at a place like ASU allows you to take these big leaps. Ultimately, the biggest problems in the world cannot be solved alone.
This year's wildfire season is expected to be more dangerous than previous years. Reporter Sydney Eisenberg was at Governor Doug Ducey's news conference today and tells us what resources he's requesting.
This year, every fuel bed at every elevation in the state is my biggest concern.
The Arizona Department of Forestry and Fire Management, the governor's office, and especially first responders are gearing up for an early wildfire season.
We expect this year's conditions to make the fire season especially challenging.
Governor Doug Ducey says this especially dry winter makes this season different from previous seasons. The National Integrated Drought Information System shows 100% of the state is abnormally dry, with almost 10% facing extreme drought. At this time last year, only 55% of the state was abnormally dry. In order to prepare, the governor has requested more funds for fire prevention.
I've requested in our budget that we double our investment in fire prevention funding from $1 million to $2 million.
Governor Ducey is also asking Arizonans to help prevent wildfires by making sure all fires are put out cold, especially while camping, and making sure their chains are not dragging while they drive. In Phoenix, Sydney Eisenberg, Cronkite News.
The Climate Assessment Program at the University of Arizona predicts that Southeast Arizona could see an increase to wildfire risk starting this month, with the rest of the state seeing an increased risk starting in April. As of this broadcast, there is currently one wildfire burning at Nob Hill near Tucson.
People in northern Arizona should be preparing for another winter storm today. As of this afternoon, Flagstaff has not seen much snow, but higher elevations are expecting up to 5 inches of snow through the rest of tonight into tomorrow. So how much longer until we warm back up? Nicole is tracking our forecast. Nicole?
Yeah, Gabe, we're not the only ones experiencing these colder temperatures. As we can see across the state, across the country right now, we're seeing this ice storm in the Midwest that's making its way across there, bringing a havoc of travel delays. And then back here at home, we're seeing this low pressure system that's going to be moving into our state, and that's going to bring colder temperatures and snow chances for the high country. We can see tomorrow, ending at about 10 a.m., Flagstaff is going to have some snow chances before it makes its way out of the state and onto the Mogollon Rim. Looking at tomorrow's highs, 32 degrees in Sedona, 26 in Flagstaff and the Grand Canyon. Chances of snow there as well. And we're going to be below average here in Phoenix as well, with a high of 59 degrees tomorrow and 58 in Casa Grande. For our 7-day forecast, tomorrow's going to have some windy conditions with a high of 58 degrees before warming up back into those 60s. And then as the start of next week, we're going to see another system step into our state and bring in some rain chances on Tuesday.
Spring training has officially started here in Arizona. And coming up on Cronkite News, how one baseball team is making changes to their brand due to controversial images.
Cronkite News weeknights at 5 on Arizona PBS.
Fridays, it's at Cronkite News, your social sharing connection where you choose the news. Facebook likes and shares, tweets, retweets, and favorites. YouTube views and subscriptions. We're watching you watch us. From our digital home at cronkitenews.azpbs.org to your television, web browser, or mobile device. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Then join us for at Cronkite News, our weekly refresh, each Friday at 5 on Arizona PBS.
The debate goes on across the country. Are sports teams that use Native American mascots engaging in racism or respect? The issue is playing out in spring training this year as Cronkite News reporter Ariana Bustos follows the story.
When the Cleveland Indians train in Goodyear this spring, you'll see a lot of this, and this. But you won't see a lot of this. The Indians had already distanced themselves from the Chief Wahoo logo in Goodyear, but are now taking the next step, announcing earlier this year the team would phase out the Chief Wahoo logo by 2019. Arizona House Representative Eric DeSheeney says it was the right thing to do.
It's a step in the right direction. I'm looking to see them sprint in the right direction.
Jackson Brossi, executive director of the Navajo Nation Washington office, said the removal should have been done long before now.
It's about time. It's about time, and should have been done a long time ago. If that picture had been any other ethnic group in the United States, we wouldn't be talking about this today. This is 2018. It's crazy.
The Indians will remove the logo completely from uniforms and facilities after this season. However, in order to maintain the trademark, the team has to use it in some capacity, which means some Chief Wahoo items will still be sold in Goodyear and the Cleveland area. Brossi isn't happy with that.
If they want to make money off of racist merchandise, that's their problem. Yeah.
DeSheeney, the director of tribal government relations for Navajo Country, hopes that the removal of this logo can inspire other teams, like the Washington Redskins, to reconsider their own controversial images.
On a local level, certainly we appreciate that, but we're talking on a national scale. It doesn't change it much when it's happening elsewhere, you know. And it's just like, as Martin Luther King used to say, you know, an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere.
Ariana Bustos, Cronkite News.
When we reached out to the team for comment, officials referred us to a statement that called the decision to retire Chief Wahoo a difficult one for the team, but the right one. The Indians play the Diamondbacks at Salt River Field Saturday evening.
Cronkite News is proud to be the news division of Arizona PBS. Here's what's coming up on Arizona Horizon and the PBS NewsHour.
On the next Arizona Horizon, we'll ask Congressman Paul Gosar about his position on gun control. And we'll check in on the Cactus League as spring training gets going in the valley. It's the next Arizona Horizon.
I'm Judy Woodruff on the next NewsHour. As students call for action on guns, conservatives gather for their annual convention. That's Thursday on the PBS NewsHour.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us.
For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
Support for Arizona PBS comes from viewers like you and from
Deanne Griebel, now with Moores & Cabot Investments, serving investors since 1890, proudly supports quality programming on 8 Arizona PBS, 480-725-9602.
The denture experts with their digital technology strive to give you a confident and natural smile with comfortable fitting dentures or implants with no sores or odors. Information and appointments at thedentureexperts.com or 480-275-6284.
Phryne Fisher is a detective.
Things could get interesting around here.
Who isn't afraid to live a little.
I hope you're not concealing a dangerous weapon under that skirt.
I'm concealing a lot of things.
The irresistible series, Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries.
Tonight at 8 on Arizona PBS. Explore new ideas and new worlds here on Arizona PBS, a community service of Arizona State University.
Arizona PBS programming is brought to you in part by the underwriting support of local businesses. Learn how you can support Arizona PBS and grow your own business by reaching viewers like you. Call 602-496-8664 or azpbs.org/underwriting.
Coming up next on Arizona PBS, Life and World.
PBS Online. Share, tweet, watch.
Coming soon to Arizona PBS. Coming this spring to Arizona PBS. Support for Arizona PBS comes from viewers like you and from
Hospice of the Valley, medical, social, and spiritual care for patients nearing end of life, and support for their families. A not-for-profit community hospice, HOV.org.
Enjoy family fun at the Herd Museum Guild Indian Fair and Market. Live performances, food, and authentic art pieces for sale from over 600 native artists from across the U.S. and Canada. Saturday and Sunday, March 3rd and 4th. Tickets on sale now at herd.org/fair.
At Arizona Oncology, we know each cancer is unique, and so is every patient we treat. Our team is dedicated to providing advanced care, innovative technology, and personalized treatment options to patients right here in our community.
Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, a discussion with Congressman Paul Gosar on gun control and why he thinks the public should have access to semi-automatic weapons. Also tonight, it's that time of year. Spring training is underway in the Valley. And we'll ride along as researchers attempt a count of Mexican gray wolves. Those stories and more next on Arizona Horizon.